The wind howled like a wounded animal through the dusty streets of Hot Springs, Wyoming Territory, 1878, a fitting backdrop for Priscilla Archer's arrival. The young schoolteacher clutched her worn carpetbag tightly as the stagecoach deposited her unceremoniously in front of what passed for the town's hotel, her chestnut hair whipping wildly across her face as she took in her new surroundings with apprehension and determination in equal measure. "Miss Archer!" a deep voice called out, causing Priscilla to turn and face a broad-shouldered man with weather-beaten features. "Isaac Winters," he said, extending a calloused hand. "Town council sent me to collect you. Hope your journey wasn't too troublesome." Priscilla adjusted her spectacles and accepted his handshake with as much firmness as she could muster. "Quite tolerable, Mr. Winters, thank you." She surveyed the modest buildings lining the main street, noting the saloon seemed to be the most robust establishment. "I'm eager to begin my duties at the schoolhouse," Isaac nodded, reaching for her bag. "Not much of a schoolhouse yet, Miss Archer. Just the old church with some benches. Town's growing, though." His blue eyes met hers briefly before he looked away, seemingly uncomfortable with the direct contact. "Got about 15 children needing learning, including my Emma." As they walked down the muddy street, Priscilla felt eyes watching her from every window and doorway. New faces were rare in Hot Springs, and a young, unmarried woman was certainly cause for curiosity. "Your daughter Emma, you said? How old is she?" Priscilla asked, carefully navigating around a particularly deep puddle. "Just turned 8 last month," Isaac replied, a hint of pride softening his otherwise stern expression. "Smart as a whip, but—" he hesitated. "Been through a lot. Lost her mama to fever 2 winters back." Priscilla's heart clenched at the familiar story of frontier hardship. "I'm sorry for your loss, Mr. Winters." Isaac merely nodded, directing her toward a small, whitewashed building at the end of the street. "This here's the boarding house. Mrs. Calloway runs it tight but fair. You'll have your meals and a clean bed, which is more than most get out here." After seeing her settled, Isaac tipped his hat and informed her that school would begin the following Monday. As he turned to leave, he paused in the doorway. "Contract's just through spring, Miss Archer. Town ain't sure we can afford a permanent teacher yet. I understand, Mr. Winters. 6 months will give us all plenty of time to decide if I'm suited to Hot Springs." What Priscilla didn't say was that she had no intention of staying beyond spring. Hot Springs was merely a stepping stone, a place to earn enough money to continue west to California, where her sister had settled comfortably with her husband. Teaching in this dusty outpost was simply a means to an end. Monday arrived with a crisp autumn chill. Priscilla smoothed down her best navy dress and made her way to the converted church that would serve as her classroom. Children of various ages were already gathering outside, eyeing her with unbridled curiosity. Among them stood a small girl with golden braids and her father's piercing blue eyes. Isaac Winters nodded curtly from where he leaned against a hitching post, his daughter partially hidden behind his leg. "Good morning," Priscilla called out cheerfully, unlocking the door. "I'm Miss Archer, your new teacher. Shall we begin our adventure together?" The children filed in, finding seats on the roughly hewn benches, all except for Emma Winters, who remained rooted beside her father. Isaac knelt down. "Go on now, Emma. Miss Archer's come all the way from Boston to teach you your letters." "Don't want to," Emma whispered loudly enough for Priscilla to hear. Priscilla approached slowly, kneeling to the child's level. "You know, Emma, I've brought some very special books that need someone clever to read them. I wonder if you might help me with that." Emma peered out from behind her father, her curiosity piqued despite her reluctance. "What kind of books?" "Books with talking animals, brave explorers and faraway kingdoms. But they're quite lonely sitting in my bag with no one to read them." Emma took a tentative step forward. "I can read some words already. Pa taught me." Isaac's weather-worn face showed a flash of pride. "She's quick with numbers, too." "How wonderful!" Priscilla exclaimed. "Then you'll be my special helper today." She extended her hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Emma took it. Isaac nodded gratefully. "I'll collect her at 4, he said before mounting his horse and riding toward the cattle lands that surrounded the town. The day passed in a flurry of activity as Priscilla assessed her students' varied abilities and began establishing routines. Emma, despite her initial reluctance, proved to be exceptionally bright, though Priscilla noticed she rarely spoke unless directly addressed. When 4 o'clock arrived, Isaac was waiting outside, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the schoolyard. Emma ran to him, surprisingly animated as she recounted her day. "Miss Archer let me help with the little ones," she was saying as Priscilla approached, "and she has a book with real pictures of Africa." "Is that so?" Isaac replied, his eyes meeting Priscilla's with something that might have been gratitude. "Emma was a tremendous help today," Priscilla said. "She has quite a gift for learning." Isaac nodded, lifting Emma onto his horse. Her mother was the same way, read everything she could get her hands on. A shadow passed over his face at the mention of his late wife. "Will you be staying in town for supper?" Priscilla asked, surprising herself with the question. "Got cattle waiting," he replied. "Another time. Perhaps." With that, he turned his horse and headed out of town, Emma secure in front of him. As autumn deepened into winter, Priscilla settled into a rhythm in Hot Springs. Her students progressed, the townspeople grew less wary of her eastern ways, and she found herself looking forward to Emma's bright mind challenging her each day. Isaac Winters remained something of an enigma. He appeared punctually each afternoon to collect Emma, but rarely engaged in conversation beyond polite acknowledgments of his daughter's progress. Occasionally, Priscilla would catch him watching her with an intensity that made her cheeks warm, but he always quickly averted his gaze when noticed. December brought heavy snows that sometimes made the journey from the Winters ranch into town treacherous. On particularly bad days, Emma would stay with Mrs. Calloway at the boarding house, and Priscilla found herself enjoying the girls' company during evening meals. "Pa says you won't stay past spring," Emma said one night as they sat by the fire, Priscilla helping her with her reading. Startled by the directness, Priscilla hesitated. "My contract is only until spring, yes." "Where will you go then?" Emma's blue eyes, so like her father's, stared up at her. "I have plans to continue west to California," Priscilla admitted. "My sister lives there with her husband." Emma frowned, turning back to her book without another word. Later, as Priscilla tucked her into bed in the small room they were sharing for the night, the girl spoke again. "Pa gets sad when people leave." The simple statement lingered in Priscilla's mind long after Emma had fallen asleep. The next day, school was canceled due to the blizzard conditions. Mid-morning, the boarding house door burst open, bringing with it a flurry of snow and Isaac Winters, his face red with cold. "Emma," he said, stamping snow from his boots. "Been worried sick." "Pa!" Emma flew into his arms. "Miss Archer's been teaching me extra reading since there's no school today." Isaac's eyes found Priscilla's over his daughter's head. "Appreciate you looking after her." "It was my pleasure," Priscilla replied, suddenly aware of how disheveled she must look in her day-old dress with her hair hastily pinned up. "Emma is always welcome company." Mrs. Calloway insisted Isaac stay for coffee and warm himself before attempting the ride back to the ranch. Reluctantly, he agreed, settling at the kitchen table while Emma proudly showed him her new reading skills. "You've done wonders with her," Isaac said quietly to Priscilla as they watched Emma sound out words from the newspaper. "She hasn't been this excited about anything since before her mother passed." "She's a special child," Priscilla replied, inquisitive, thoughtful. "You should be very proud." Isaac nodded, his eyes lingering on his daughter. "Sarah, my wife, she always said Emma would change someone's life someday." He looked at Priscilla. Seems she was right. The raw emotion in his voice caught Priscilla off guard. For the first time, she saw past the stoic exterior to the man beneath a man who had endured loss and solitude while raising a child alone. "I'm just doing my job, Mr. Winters," she said softly. "Isaac," he corrected. "Think after all this time you could call me Isaac." Before Priscilla could respond, Mrs. Calloway announced that the weather was clearing, and Isaac should make his way home before darkness fell. "Emma stays here tonight," Isaac decided, looking at the contentment on his daughter's face as she read. "If that's all right with Miss Archer." "Of course," Priscilla agreed, trying to ignore the flutter in her stomach at his direct gaze. As winter tightened its grip on Hot Springs, Priscilla found herself increasingly drawn into the winter's world. Emma spoke constantly of the ranch, the horses, the cattle, the cozy cabin her father had built with his own hands. And increasingly, Isaac found reasons to linger after collecting Emma, sometimes accepting invitations to stay for supper at the boarding house. During these meals, Priscilla discovered that beneath his taciturn exterior was a man of surprising depth. He spoke knowledgeably about cattle breeding and range management, but also revealed a love of poetry that had been fostered by his late wife. Sarah would read aloud in the evenings, he explained one night as they sat by the fire after Emma had gone to bed. Said even if we were 1,000 miles from civilization, we didn't have to be uncivilized. "She sounds like a remarkable woman," Priscilla said. "She was," Isaac agreed, his eyes reflecting the dancing flames. "Took me a long while to accept she wasn't coming back. Emma still asks about her sometimes, especially around Christmas." Priscilla thought of her own parents, both lost to influenza when she was just 17. "The pain changes shape, but it never truly leaves us," she said softly. Isaac looked at her with new understanding. "You've lost someone too." "My parents. 5 years ago, my sister is all the family I have left. Is that why you're determined to reach California? To not be alone?" The question struck Priscilla with unexpected force. Was that truly her motivation? Had she been running toward her sister or away from the emptiness of her parents' absence? "I suppose I haven't fully examined my reasons," she admitted. "It simply seemed like the logical path forward." Isaac nodded, poking at the fire. "Logic and the heart don't always speak the same language, Miss Archer." "Priscilla," she corrected, offering him a small smile. "I think after all this time you could call me Priscilla." Christmas approached, bringing with it a town celebration at the church. The children performed a nativity play, with Emma proudly reciting a lengthy passage from the Gospel of Luke without a single error. Afterward, there was music and dancing, the townspeople letting loose after months of hard work and harsh weather. To Priscilla's surprise, Isaac asked her to dance, his large hand extended toward her with uncharacteristic uncertainty. "I'm afraid I'm rather out of practice," he said as they joined the other couples. "As am I," Priscilla confessed. "Boston society seems a lifetime ago now." As they moved somewhat awkwardly to the fiddle music, Priscilla became acutely aware of the strong hand at her waist, the clean scent of soap and leather that clung to Isaac, and the unexpected grace with which he guided her through the steps. "You dance beautifully for someone out of practice," she said, trying to mask her nervousness with light conversation. "Had a good teacher," he replied. "Sarah insisted I learn properly before we married. Said she wouldn't have people thinking she'd wed a man with 2 left feet." The mention of Sarah usually created distance between them, but tonight, in the warm glow of the candlelit church, it felt like Isaac was sharing something precious rather than guarding a wound. "She would be proud of you," Priscilla said softly, "of the father you are to Emma." Isaac's step faltered slightly, his eyes searching hers. "I've done my best. It hasn't always been enough." "It has been more than enough," Priscilla insisted, surprising herself with the fervor in her voice. "Emma is kind, intelligent, and brave, all reflections of you." The dance ended before Isaac could respond, but his hand lingered on hers a moment longer than necessary as they parted. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, Isaac approached Priscilla with Emma fast asleep in his arms. "We'd be honored if you'd join us for Christmas dinner at the ranch," he said. "Nothing fancy, but Emma's been asking, and well," he trailed off, uncharacteristically hesitant. "I would love to," Priscilla replied, her heart quickening at the invitation. "I'll come fetch you Christmas morning then," Isaac said, a rare smile transforming his features. Christmas Day dawned clear and brilliantly cold. Priscilla wore her best dress, a deep green wool that she'd been saving for a special occasion, and wrapped herself in multiple layers before Isaac arrived with the wagon. The Winters Ranch was modest but well-tended, with a sturdy log cabin nestled against a backdrop of snow-covered hills. Inside, Emma had decorated with pine boughs and ribbon, and a small tree stood in the corner adorned with paper ornaments she had made at school. "It's lovely," Priscilla said, genuinely touched by the effort they had made. The day passed in comfortable companionship. They exchanged simple gifts, a hand-knitted scarf from Priscilla for Emma, a leather-bound volume of poetry from Isaac to Priscilla that had belonged to Sarah, and from Emma to her teacher, a carefully pressed wildflower collection from the previous summer. "Pa helped me with the pressing," Emma explained proudly, "said they'd last forever this way." "It's the most beautiful gift I've ever received," Priscilla said, fighting back unexpected tears. After dinner, as Emma played with the wooden horse Isaac had carved for her, Priscilla helped him wash the dishes, their shoulders occasionally brushing in the small kitchen area. "Thank you for including me today," she said. "It's been the loveliest Christmas I can remember in years." Isaac paused, a plate half-dried in his hands. "Having you here feels right somehow," he said, his voice low. "Emma's happier than I've seen her in a long time." "She's a special child," Priscilla repeated her earlier sentiment. "I've grown very fond of her." "And she of you," Isaac said, setting down the plate. "Which worries me, truth be told." Priscilla looked at him questioningly. "Spring will be here before we know it," he continued, "and then you'll be gone to California, as planned." The reminder of her impending departure sat like a stone in Priscilla's stomach. She had been so caught up in the present that she'd allowed her future plans to fade somewhat from her mind. "Yes," she said softly. "That's still my intention." Isaac nodded, his face returning to its usual unreadable expression. "Best Emma remembers that. Best we all do." The atmosphere between them cooled slightly after Christmas, though Isaac remained unfailingly polite whenever their paths crossed. January brought more snow and a bout of influenza that swept through the town, keeping many students home. Priscilla worked tirelessly, visiting sick children with remedies provided by the town's doctor and delivering lessons to those too ill to attend school. When Emma fell ill, Priscilla insisted on staying at the ranch to nurse her, despite Isaac's protests that it wasn't proper. "Propriety matters little when a child's health is at stake," Priscilla said firmly, settling into a chair beside Emma's bed. "I've nursed dozens through this illness already. I know what to watch for." For 3 days, Priscilla barely left Emma's side, bathing her fevered forehead, coaxing her to drink herbal teas and reading softly to her during lucid moments. Isaac moved about the cabin like a shadow, bringing firewood, preparing simple meals, and occasionally relieving Priscilla so she could rest briefly. On the 3rd night, Emma's fever broke, and she fell into a deep, healing sleep. Priscilla, exhausted from her vigil, nearly collapsed in relief. "You should rest," Isaac said, gently guiding her to the small sofa by the fire. "I'll watch her now." "She'll be fine," Priscilla murmured, her eyes already closing. "The worst has passed." She woke some time later to find a blanket tucked around her and Isaac sitting nearby, watching her with an unguarded expression that made her breath catch. "What time is it?" she asked, disoriented. "Just past midnight," he replied. "Emma's sleeping peacefully." Priscilla sat up, embarrassed to have been caught sleeping so vulnerably. "I should check on her." Isaac reached out, his hand gentle on her arm. "You've done enough, Priscilla. More than enough." His voice was rough with emotion. "I don't know how to thank you." "There's no need for thanks," she said. "I care about Emma." "Just Emma?" The question hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning. Priscilla looked into his eyes, seeing the same vulnerability there that she felt in her own heart. "No," she whispered, "not just Emma." Isaac moved slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, before his lips met hers in a kiss so gentle it brought tears to her eyes. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers, his breathing uneven. "I never expected this," he confessed. "Never thought I'd feel this way again after Sarah." "Nor I," Priscilla admitted. It wasn't part of my plan. Isaac pulled back slightly, his expression growing serious. Your plans haven't changed, have they? You'll still leave when spring comes. Priscilla found herself torn between the future she had mapped out and the unexpected happiness she had found in Hot Springs. I don't know, she said honestly. I made a promise to my sister. Isaac nodded, accepting her answer without pushing further. We have time yet before decisions must be made, he said, though the shadow in his eyes spoke of his doubt. February brought warmer days, the first hints that winter's grip was loosening. The town council, pleased with Priscilla's dedication during the influenza outbreak, officially offered to extend her contract for the following school year. She asked for time to consider their offer, her mind and heart at war. One afternoon, as school was dismissing, Emma approached her desk while the other children filed out. Pa says you might stay next year, she said, her voice carefully controlled. Is that true? Priscilla gestured for Emma to sit beside her. The town has asked me to stay, yes, but I haven't decided yet. Because of your sister in California? Partly, Priscilla acknowledged, and partly because sometimes adults make plans and feel they must follow through on them. Emma considered this with a seriousness beyond her years. Pa says plans can change when something more important comes along. Your father is a wise man, Priscilla said, touched by Isaac's indirect message. What would you think if I did stay? Emma's face brightened momentarily before she schooled it back to careful neutrality, a trait she'd clearly inherited from her father. I'd like it, she said, but I'd understand if you left. People always do. The matter-of-fact acceptance in the child's voice broke something in Priscilla's heart. Emma, not everyone leaves. Ma did, Emma said simply, and then Miss Jenkins before you, and Dr. Phillips when his wife got sick, and, oh, Emma, Priscilla pulled the girl into a gentle embrace. Some departures can't be helped. It doesn't mean people want to leave you. Emma allowed herself to be held for a moment before pulling away. If you do go, can I still write to you? Pa says I write good letters now. Of course, Priscilla promised, even as she wondered if such correspondence would be a comfort or a reminder of what she'd left behind. That evening, Isaac came to the boarding house alone, asking Priscilla if she would walk with him. They strolled through the quiet town, the lengthening daylight a reminder of spring's approach. Emma tells me you discussed the possibility of staying, Isaac said as they reached the edge of town. The council has made a generous offer, Priscilla confirmed, and I admit I've grown attached to the school, the children. And is that all you've grown attached to? Isaac asked, stopping to face her. Priscilla met his gaze steadily. No, you know it isn't. Isaac took her hands in his. I'm not a man who speaks easily of feelings, Priscilla. Sarah used to tease me about that. But I need you to know that what I feel for you is real and true. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I'm not asking you to forget your plans or your sister. I'm just asking you to consider if there might be room in those plans for me and Emma. The earnestness in his voice moved her deeply. Isaac, Don't answer now, he interrupted gently. Just promise you'll truly consider all possibilities before you decide. Priscilla nodded, squeezing his hands. I promise. March arrived with surprising warmth, melting the last of the snow and bringing the first green shoots pushing through the soil. Priscilla found herself counting the days until her contract ended with growing anxiety rather than anticipation. She had written to her sister, explaining her dilemma and the unexpected attachments she had formed in Hot Springs. The reply had been supportive but non-committal. Follow your heart, Prissy. California will still be here whenever you decide to come. One afternoon, as Priscilla was working late at the schoolhouse, Emma burst through the door, tear streaks evident on her face. Emma, what's wrong? Priscilla rushed to the child's side. You told Millie Taylor you'd be gone by spring, Emma accused, her voice trembling, that you were just waiting for the weather to clear before heading to California. Priscilla winced, remembering the conversation with the storekeeper's daughter the previous day, a casual mention of her original plans that she hadn't realized Emma might overhear. Emma, I was explaining what I had initially planned. I haven't made my final decision yet. But you will leave, Emma insisted, her blue eyes brimming with fresh tears. Everyone always leaves. Not everyone, Priscilla said, kneeling to meet Emma's gaze. And even if I were to go, it wouldn't mean I didn't care deeply for you. Emma's chin jutted out stubbornly. If you cared, you'd stay. The simple logic of childhood struck Priscilla like a physical blow. It's not that simple, Emma. It is that simple, Emma countered. You either stay with people you care about or you leave them. That's all there is. She took a deep breath, her next words clearly rehearsed. I told Pa if you're going to be gone by spring, then I'll stop counting seasons. I don't want to know when spring comes anymore. The declaration, so earnest and heartbroken, brought tears to Priscilla's eyes. Oh, Emma. Don't cry, Emma said fiercely. You don't get to cry about leaving. That's not fair. Before Priscilla could respond, the schoolhouse door opened again, and Isaac stood there, concern etched on his features. Emma, he said sternly, you know better than to run off without telling me where you're going. I had to tell Miss Archer about the seasons, Emma explained, as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world. Isaac's eyes met Priscilla's over his daughter's head, noting her tears. Why don't you wait for me by the wagon, Emma? I need a word with Miss Archer. Once Emma was out of earshot, Isaac approached Priscilla, his expression troubled. I'm sorry if she upset you. She overheard something at the store yesterday and has been in a state ever since. It's my fault, Priscilla said, wiping away a stray tear. I spoke carelessly about my plans without considering who might be listening. Have you made your decision then? Isaac asked, his voice carefully neutral. Will you be gone with the spring? Priscilla looked at him. This man who had slowly but surely worked his way into her heart with his quiet strength and unwavering devotion to his daughter. She thought of Emma, brilliant and vulnerable, who had already lost too much in her young life. And she thought of the life she had envisioned for herself in California, comfortable perhaps, but now seeming strangely empty compared to what she had found here. No, she said finally. I don't believe I will. Isaac's expression remained guarded. What are you saying, Priscilla? I'm saying that sometimes plans change when something more important comes along, she said, echoing his words to Emma. And I found something far more important here in Hot Springs than anything waiting for me in California. The hope that dawned on Isaac's face was like the sun breaking through clouds. You're certain? I don't want you to stay out of obligation or pity. I'm staying because I love you, Priscilla said simply. Both of you, and because this place, against all odds, has become home. Isaac closed the distance between them, gathering her in his arms with a tenderness that belied his strength. I love you too, he whispered against her hair. More than I thought possible. When they told Emma, her reaction was a mixture of disbelief and cautious joy. Really truly staying? Forever? Really truly, Priscilla confirmed. If you'll have me as part of your family. Emma looked between Priscilla and her father. Are you going to marry Pa? Because Millie Taylor says that's what happens when grown-ups love each other. Isaac coughed, clearly embarrassed, but Priscilla laughed. That is generally how it works, she agreed, though your father might appreciate the chance to ask me properly himself. Actually, Isaac said, reaching into his pocket, I've been carrying this around for weeks, waiting for the right moment. He pulled out a simple gold ring with a small pearl. It was my mother's, he explained. Sarah had her own, but I hoped you might accept this one. Priscilla gasped as he knelt before her, there in the schoolhouse with Emma watching wide-eyed. Priscilla Archer, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? And Emma's mother? Yes, Priscilla answered without hesitation. Yes to both, with all my heart. They were married in the church as spring blossomed fully around Hot Springs. Emma stood proudly beside them, holding a bouquet of the season's first wildflowers. The entire town turned out to celebrate, their initial wariness of the Eastern schoolteacher long forgotten. Priscilla wrote to her sister with the news, inviting her to visit whenever she could make the journey. I've found my place in this world, she wrote, with a man who loves me completely and a child who has taught me the true meaning of home. Years later, as Priscilla sat on the porch of their expanded ranch house, Watching Isaac teach their young son to ride while Emma, now a teenager, practiced her teaching skills with the neighboring children, she reflected on how close she had come to missing this life. Had she clung to her original plan, she would never have known the deep contentment that filled her days or the abiding love that sustained her through life's challenges. Emma joined her on the porch, her golden braids replaced by a single plait down her back. "What are you thinking about, Ma?" she asked, using the name she had adopted for Priscilla shortly after the wedding. "I was thinking about seasons," Priscilla replied, squeezing her stepdaughter's hand, "and how grateful I am that you refused to count them all those years ago." Emma smiled, the same stubborn determination that had once declared she would stop counting seasons, now tempered with the wisdom of growing up loved. "Best decision I ever made," she said. "Even better than your decision to stay." Together they watched as Isaac lifted little Thomas onto the pony's back, the boy's delighted laughter carrying across the yard. In that moment, Priscilla knew with absolute certainty that no place, not Boston, not California, nowhere on earth could ever have offered her the fullness of heart she had found here, in this unexpected home, with this family that had become undeniably and perfectly her own.